So outside of those two, obviously next we got Logan Gilbert in the Mariners pitching tree. How far behind those two would you put a Logan Gilbert? Is he fairly close, or is it like a considerable 20, 30
Man,
spot gap?
I get very conflicted on Logan Gilbert. My problem is that his four-seamer just keeps getting worse, like a lot worse. And extension is the name of the game with Gilbert. One of the things this offseason I've really been focusing on is utilizing our PLV pitch app, which lets me see the critical components of what makes a good four-seamer. Extension is a big one. You have IVB, induced vertical break. You have VAA, which is their arm angle essentially in the relative to where they're throwing it. And of course, you have like velocity and location and stuff. Not actual stuff plus. This is what makes up stuff plus. But Logan Gilbert, I was surprised to see, does not have good IVB. And he doesn't really have a good VAA, but he has a good amount of extension. But it's not enough. And to see a season of a 9% swing strike rate on Logan Gilbert's fastball is shocking. However, he's really bad at locating that thing upstairs. Like, it actually could work upstairs decently well.
Mhm.
It's just he's not really doing it effectively anymore. In the first half of the year, you had Logan Gilbert throw splitters and four-seamers and actually do kind of well with that. Lost both mostly. And sliders showed up. And by the end of the year, I mean, this is crazy to me. I remember in 2022, we were saying with Logan Gilbert, oh man, if only he could find a slider. If only. And then he finds one, and then his fastball goes away. Like, he threw over 50% sliders in a game last year. That's unreal. Who are you?
That's ridiculous.
But this is the thing about Logan Gilbert is watching him. I know he has like a 5% walk rate. He's a control guy, not a command guy. And I don't feel like Logan Gilbert is able to wield what he has effectively. And it drives me up the wall. I really don't like going after guys where I don't feel like they can surgically take down a batter. It's them battling themselves more than the batter. And like, he'll be like, oh, you know what? Oh, it's 2-0. Here's a fastball down the middle, whatever. And it drives me up. God, I hate it. So I could see a scenario where Logan Gilbert keeps the slider from last year and then figures out how to get that four-seamer consistently upstairs, then maybe gets more strikes out of that curveball, just a 56% strike rate last year, which is terrible. You want to see at least 60%. And that's a big reason why he had to lean so heavily on that slider. Maybe that fastball in the zone. He should not have a near 70% strike rate on a four-seamer if it has an ICR that is an ideal contact rate of 43%. That essentially says that he's throwing strikes that ultimately land into being good contact for hitters. It's not beneficial strikes as much. We actually have a new stat coming out called Striker. It's strike minus 2 times ICR rate. So it's a really effective way of saying, cool, you're throwing strikes. How many of those strikes are actually beneficial for you and not damage in play, right? Because the ultimate goal of a pitcher is to throw 100% strikes without having any sort of good contact by the hitter, right? And if you throw 70% strikes, but then 70% of the time, like, all those strikes are just always crushed, and that's just terrible. Stop throwing strikes. You'd rather walk them. So it's a really cool way of doing it. And Logan Gilbert does not favor well with striker on that four-seamer. And that's a huge problem. He's got to fix it in a big way. I don't know if he's going to do it. It's too much risk for me.
Does he feel more like maybe a better real-life pitcher than fantasy pitcher then in that sense?
It's possible. I think it's going to get worse, though, is my thing. Like, it's a 108 whip. And a 240, a 24% K rate last year. And you see that and you go, oh, cool. The ERA will come down and everything's fine. And I'm not quite in that belief. Like, I'm kind of terrified. I have a new thing I say, which is when the old skill is lost and a new skill takes over, more times than not, the new skill falls before the old skill returns. So, like, you'll see a guy that has, like a worse four-seamer, but the slider is making up for it, so it's okay. You think, oh man, once the fastball comes back, and you'll have this new slider. Like, no, most of the time the slider then fades and it's just bad for a bit. And then he has to figure it out. Now, I mean, I could be completely wrong here about, hey, the low walk rates will be there. The hit per 9 is still going to be at 8, and he's still going to have this low whip. The ERA will get better. He's still going to have a 25% strikeout rate. Then he's just this ace, and that's amazing. It's hard for me to do that when he has a four-seamer that I feel is just not that good. And The slider is not elite. Like, maybe I'm underrating it. Really good ICR rates last year, like 32% is super good. PLV loves it at near 5.5, which is fantastic. So maybe it is kind of elite. Maybe I'm underrating it. But man, I just wish I got more out of that four-seamer, and I can't sit here and say that he's going to get that four-seamer back.
He's a guy that was so hyped for his four-seamer coming out of AAA too. That was,
I know, right?
I remember when he made his first start, everybody hyped it up so much, and it was, look at this guy, he's tall on the mound, got the long luxurious hair, he's going to come out here throwing heat. And then that was mainly all he did in that first start, was just cramming fastballs in there, and it went okay. And now to see that his fastball is just not a great fastball from a guy that you were kind of hoping was going to have a great fastball.
So weird, right?
It's a bit disappointing. Yeah, that shouldn't happen.
Yeah. I mean, maybe it's going to be better because it's that weird, right? Maybe he's just going to get better. I'm going to be so stupid here.
That's a good point. It can only go up from here, hopefully.
You say that. No,
I'm knocking on wood right now while I say it.
Like it's a 95, 96 fastball, and then like now it'll be like 94, 95 or something. I don't know. I mean, it depends on where he's going, right? That's the thing. It's like, I'm not saying that I don't want Logan Webb in my fantasy teams. Like, I'll be happy to have him. I'm sure he'll be fine and beneficial for you. It's more that if I have to take Logan Gilbert and pass on like Framber Valdez, or I need to pass on Kodai Senga, or something that I know I'm like, oh man, this is great, I'm getting good value out of this, then I'm like, no, I'm not. I'd rather have Grayson Rodriguez, or I'd rather have Zach Eflin or Joe Musgrove or Yuri Perez. Like a lot of these guys that I feel are so much more than what Logan Gilbert is. Yeah, I'm not in on that regard, but like he's still going to be in my top 35, you know?